Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and today I'm here all by my lonesome to share with you, as promised last week, some of the most powerful foci for us to have in this week so as to maximize the unique opportunity of the month of Virgo. The month of Virgo has a special purpose in the teachings of Kabbalah, and today we're going to focus on the first week. What is the gift of this initial launch into the month of Virgo, the specific opportunity, and every week we'll do our best to shine light on the specific work of that week of the month, because if we do our work this month, we transform all of the darkness that took place in the past year to become, instead of darkness, to become light. Weekly Energy Boost is a 7-day spiritual weather forecast where we provide our listeners with the most practical and powerful tools to navigate the coming 7 days. We do that by gleaning through the wisdom of Kabbalah and identifying the wisdom and tools that are not only going to help you maximize the impact of this week and help you transform and transcend the potential challenges, but every episode ends up offering wisdom and tools that can assist you any week of the year, any year of your life. And this specific week, again, thinking also in terms of how the month of Virgo is really a month with no energy of its own. We are the ones who create its potential. And it serves us as the final month before the new year for humanity, even though the calendar month begins in Aries, or the zodiac begins in Aries, the human calendar begins in the month of Virgo. And in the month of Libra, which is next month. And we're going to use the month of Virgo, which therefore is the last month before Libra, before Rosh Hashanah, and the 21 days of the month that help us create a new operating system for the coming year. The teachings of Kabbalah instruct us to use the 30 days before that window to reflect, rethink, and reimagine the events of the past year and how they were meant to serve us, how we can transform those moments of darkness into moments of light, and how we can use those lessons to strategize for a better year. And the overall title for that work is Teshuvah, which means it's I think unfairly translated in English as repentance, because it isn't about beating yourself up and acknowledging that you're wrong and you failed, which may be a single step in a long journey towards transformation. It's really a 30-day window that opens, that allows us to travel back in time to all of those moments in the year where we fell short, where we missed an opportunity, where we acted out of instinct or survival skills that focused only on the self alone and not on the bigger picture, not on other people, not on the long game. And this week specifically, the universe wants us to look at the disconnect between our selves and the light of the Creator, which is also a disconnect from our souls. And we understand from the teachings of Kabbalah that every human being has a spark of the light of the Creator inside them, and that is in a way like a homing device, or kind of like, it makes me think of superhero stories and how there's one gem that you have to bring the gems together and then the game is over. We each have a gem inside us. And maybe you can look at some people and say, yes, I recognize that person has a gem inside them. And other people you might say, that guy's doesn't have a gem. Or we even talk about people that they're soulless. There's no such thing. The Kabbalists teach that what does often happen is that the gem inside is so covered, so caked on and baked on with negativity, with darkness, that it's hard to perceive the gem within. And so in this specific week, according to the Zohar and the portion of the Torah, it's talking to us about, it gives us all kinds of guidance. If you look at the simple story, Moses is telling the Israelites, how to live and prosper in society, be kind, how to deal fairly in business with people, what to do if you find something that's lost. And it seems like a lesson in morals and ethics if you look at the simple text. When you look at what the Zohar says, the Zohar gives us such a profound insight into why we would even need to look at this text once a year for the last 3,500 years. It's really about repairing or elevating the situations in which we allow darkness to come between us and the light of the Creator. It's interesting to me to both look at the original text and then see the Kabbalists' writings on these topics, because the text looks valid. Sometimes we learn things in scripture that seem like outdated. I'm not a farmer. I don't have slaves, those kind of things. And the Zohar gives us great insight into how not to look at it as a literal story. In this portion, you could look at it as a literal story and gain so much from it. But the Zohar says, still, don't take it at face value. Understand that one of the greatest mistakes we make in our journey on the planet Earth is those moments, not where we curse the Creator, or we say, God, why are you doing this to me? Or, I don't understand, I'm such a good person, why would you do this? I even often hear people say things like, maybe God doesn't want me to be happy, or it's not in the cards for me to have X, Y, or Z in my life. We learn that the light of the Creator is an endless force of beneficence. That doesn't mean that the Creator is thinking, how can I make Elisheva more comfortable? How can I give Elisheva, the easiest time on earth that she can have? The opposite. The whole universe is rigged not to make me suffer, but to give me every opportunity to elevate, to grow, to transform, to heal, to reveal more of my own limitless potential. And that usually doesn't come to us on a silver platter or on a slip and slide. It usually happens when a challenge presents itself and I utilize it. I utilize the challenge for the reason it was sent to me, to help me to elevate, to access more of my limitless potential. But if I don't look at challenges that way, and I feel that challenges are punishment or unfair, they do the opposite. They create even more layers around my gem. So this is really the work of this week, is to understand, and I even often tell people, it's worthwhile to go 12 months back in your calendar and see what you were doing, what you were working on, who you were spending time with, what was important to you. It's very hard to remember without, at least for me, without a visual aid. If you journal, that's a great way to do it. I look at my calendar. You could sift through emails. There's so many different ways to go back in time mentally. But the goal is to go back in time energetically and remember the headspace that you were in and identify those moments. Maybe you're not proud of them, and this is not about creating a brag sheet or a new CV. It is to identify the places where we fell instead of rising above in that relationship with the Creator, which is, again, my connection to my soul, my connection to the higher power, but also even in my quest to grow my consciousness. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that in a second. But I happened to read a beautiful section in the writings of Rav Ashlag in a book called And You Shall Choose Life, which is a fabulous compilation of essays. And I highly recommend it if it's not something that you've read. I can actually put the link in the show notes later. But for me, it's not a coincidence. I was looking for something else and I found this paragraph. And in that paragraph, Rav Ashlag says, obviously, we don't want to get to the place where we're angry at God or we blame God, because that within itself creates disconnect, darkness, and so forth. Even worse than that is when we look at our circumstances and attribute them to nature, to luck, to coincidence. That's an even greater disconnect than cursing God for what he's done to you. So what does it mean, disconnect? If you've been following us for any period of time, you know that Kabbalah is a wisdom of understanding how the world came into existence, how creation unfolded, and through that we understand how creation happens in our daily lives, why we're here, how to get to a greater level of fulfillment of purpose, joy and fulfillment. And every episode we aim to share a slice of that pie on how to do that work. Well, if you understand this section that I just summarized, you can't ignore the fact that how we perceive the light of the Creator is what determines our relationship with the light of the Creator. So when you go out into the world and you say, there is nothing but the light of the Creator, everything that's happening has its divine timing and divine purpose. And even though I don't always get to see, if we're honest, we almost never get to see, the divine order beneath the disorder, it's there. And maintaining that consciousness, holding on to that certainty, is actually a tool for expediting the growth and transformation and healing process. But because we're human, inevitably, we're going to fall off that horse. And we're going to get to moments where we're frustrated, we're angry, we feel victimized, we feel blame or shame or guilt. And the secret this week is to understanding that all of those moments create a disconnect between us and the light of the Creator. And if we understand it on a deeper level, put a cloak over the gem of our soul. And the more we do that, the harder it is to hear the soul, the harder it is for the Creator to send us the messages and the signals that we so desperately crave. But even more so, to remember that the light of the Creator shines constantly, limitlessly, and indiscriminately. And that's a really big thing for people to swallow, because I think a lot of us were raised with the perception that God favors some and looks down on others. God has lightning coming out of one finger and lottery numbers coming out of the other, and God plays favorites. According to the teachings of Kabbalah, the light of the Creator radiates on all of us in equal measure. What determines our experience of it is our vessel, our perception, our understanding. And so if I decide there's no light in a given situation or a given challenge or in an individual, I'm effectively putting an umbrella over myself. And even though the sun is shining, it's high noon and everybody's wearing sunglasses because it's so bright, I've relegated myself to sit in the dark and say that there is no light here. The light hasn't stopped shining. The light can be everywhere and on everyone and everything, but because I've changed my vessel, my perception of what's going on, I won't experience the light that I could. Meaning all I have to do is throw the umbrella away, and that figurative umbrella is unique to every situation, but that's a choice. So when I say, curse you, God, for blah, 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 that's, 3 umbrellas thick. When I say, oh, that's unlucky, or you were just in the wrong place at the wrong time, or I talk about how, the earthquake or a tsunami is Mother Nature retaliating on us or whatever, we say all kinds of things all the time. What I'm doing is I'm taking myself out of the light and deciding I desire to be put in darkness. I know it's an extreme thing to say, and I'm cognizant of that, but that's effectively what we do. And this is the time of the year where if we go back and we remember, and there's one particular situation I remember in the past year, and I hope I don't choke up talking about it, but we lost someone in our lives that we were very close with, and it was brutal. And if I'm honest, I had moments of like, what's going on? And I wasn't saying it to the walls of my house. I was definitely saying it to the light of the Creator. And it put me through a kind of reckoning, because it's easy to see the light of the Creator when you're happy and things are going well, or even things are fine. Maybe going well is extreme. When things are okay, there's a certain degree of gratitude and appreciation we can have because the boat's not rocking. And in that period, which definitely was an extended one, and I'm glad to bring it out into the world because I'm sure everybody has a period or two or three from the past year where that happened. But in going through that reflection, me looking at that period, I don't remember how long exactly it was, I managed to show up, teach. I'm sure we recorded plenty of episodes in that period and went off without a hitch. But my own personal wrestling with, if the creator is all good, how can this be happening? And asking those questions, it's human, it's necessary, it's essential to growth. And I think part of sharing that, and each one of us looking for our own moments in the year where we allowed something happening on the physical level to interfere with our spiritual connection, if we're honest, those moments, we can still struggle with them, and we should be human. I'm not saying, I should have looked at that, woe is me. I should have looked at that as divine guidance, and, all the things and the teachings that I know are true are not negated by my feelings. I still felt pain and grief and loss. And at the same time, I know that whatever I went through and the darkness that I chose to sit in has potential boomerangs. And by me going back to that time and owning up to the darkness I chose to sit in and the opportunities that I passed up because I couldn't show up, that I couldn't be there for others. And it's so interesting too, because in this week's portion, there's a whole discussion about if you find something, a lost item, and you don't return it, and you could have, and I always go to the thought of, like, let's say you find someone's wallet. It actually happened to me before. Their ID is in it. I tried to find them. I message them on Facebook. You do whatever you can to find them, reach out to them, send it to the DMV, whatever you do. Okay, I did whatever I could. But if you could do something and you didn't, there are negative spiritual consequences to that. And the biggest one that the Kabbalists teach is that when you yourself need help, you are putting a stumbling block in front of that help by not making the effort to help when you could. We always talk about what you give is what you get. If you want love and respect, you need to give love and respect. But here's such a coded or shrouded example of that. And I'm using it because in those moments where I felt I couldn't show up in life, even though I did many times, there were days where it was just too much. I can go back now and have that conversation with the version I was then and feel the pain. Feel the pain for that person. Have compassion and empathy for the version of me that sat in the dark for however long it was, and now use those opportunities, like sit in the month of Virgo and say, that was perfect. It wasn't punishment. As excruciating as maybe it was literally, I may have seen it, and this is the language of the Zohar, I may have seen it as a lock, like something closed, and now I realize it was actually an opening. And in that particular example, I can see the goodness that comes from it, but that doesn't negate the pain and the loss and the grief. And so I think the goal for all of us this week can be to go back to those moments where we could have revealed light and we didn't. We could have shared, we could have acted like the light of the Creator. We could have been generous, magnanimous, thoughtful, patient, kind. We could have been present and we weren't. And to feel the pain of not being able to show up the way we know we could show up. And feeling the pain of the boomerang, meaning I regret that now. And at the same time, I know I can't change it, not in the physical. But when I look back on it and I change how it affects me, when I change my energy around it, when I extract the lessons and the growth that was meant to be given to me 9 months ago when it happened, I turn that darkness into light. I transform that space, that distance into closeness. I not only fix And that, I think, is the challenge about this tshuva process that we're all going to be striving for this month, is that it's not that something was broken. I'm not a broken person. I mean, it was devastating, but I'm here and I'm better for it. And I am grateful for the wisdom and the tools that helped all of us go through that experience. And at the same time, I know there's a higher version of that experience for me. And when I go back and take account, hold myself accountable for the opportunities that I missed that were outside of me. Next week, we'll talk about the opportunities within. This week is about the opportunities outside of me. What are the missed opportunities that I passed up this year to reveal my soul, to reveal my limitless potential, to reveal the light of the Creator in my life and in the world because I was into myself? And again, sometimes we're into ourselves for all the right reasons. And I use the death of someone you care about as an example. It's not something I could have avoided. Avoiding the pain in that situation is more damaging than feeling the pain. And not that feeling the pain is damaging, but I want to make sure I don't sound like an advocate for repression or suppression. That's far more, that's like dying 1,000 times. Don't do that. But to know that what I looked at as darkness is actually light. What looked to me as pain and suffering was a gateway for growth. And I want to make sure, even though it was months ago, today I have the opportunity, this week, I have the opportunity to go back in time and extract all the sparks from that situation that I may have missed because I was hurting, I was down, I was exhausted, and all the other things that I may have gone through. Now, I use that huge example because it's a loud example. Think about all the other times where you were impatient and intolerant of someone going through something. Or maybe intolerance is extreme. Maybe you were just apathetic about it. What's the big deal? And you couldn't show up for a friend or a loved one in the highest way you could. Recognizing that there's no gray. You're either revealing light or not. And so in choosing apathy or intolerance or impatience, we're choosing darkness. And if we really internalize that this week, it can be the most transformative week of our lives. Every example of those moments that we can identify from the past 12 months, meaning the more you find, the more light you reveal. So I recommend every night this week, you take time. Sometimes, obviously, you can do it in the morning too. Every day this week, take time to reflect on the past year. Try and remember those moments where you weren't your highest self. You weren't your soulful self. And going back to those moments and feeling them, know that you are extracting a spark that's going to help remove the covers over your gem, remove the static between you and the light of the Creator so you can hear more clearly, see more clearly, flow with greater abundance of light in your own life. That's really, I feel pain for people who look at this tshuva process as something that's a drag, a burden, painful. The pain that you may uncover in that process is meant to release you, meant to free you from the boomerangs that could potentially be coming back to you. So even though it's difficult, it's also the most blessed work we can do. And in knowing that, also pay attention to the situations that take place this month that are meant to remind you of situations from the past year where you did the same thing. Don't look at the incidents throughout your day as the live feed of your life. Look at every day this month as a throwback. Every situation this month is meant to remind you of something that happened in the past year where you missed the mark, where you didn't push yourself, where you didn't strive, where you settled, you allowed an old software to operate. And when you find those moments, write them down. Come up, do the profit and loss report for this year. doing that work, even though it's not easy to dig in every day, it is the most valuable, the most profitable spiritual exercise you can be doing this month. I'm so glad I got to share that with you. I'm so glad you could help me go through that process. And I'm really excited for the week ahead and how transformative it's going to be for all of us. Weekly Energy Boost is available on all podcast platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. You can follow us there, all those platforms, to receive even more content to support you in doing the work we recommend every week. You can also go to weeklyenergyboost.com, send us a message, search through our archives, or click the donate button to help make Weekly Energy Boost possible. But as always, share this episode. Imagine the transformation on planet Earth that can take place if more people are doing this work. You can be a part of that. And we know you do. We know you are. So thank you. And we'll see you next week on Weekly Energy Boost.